Hello everyone, welcome to Enviro Pioneers. In this video, we will learn about the adverse effect of the light pollution on environment. The most notable effect of the light pollution that we all know is related to the problem associated with the stargazing. The artificial light at night, it creates the sky glow, which competes with the faint light of the astronomical objects in the night sky, and it lowers the contrast between these objects and the background sky, making it difficult to observe them. And thus it hampers the astronomical research by reducing the visibility of the celestial bodies. But apart from its effect on the astronomical research, it also have the negative effect on the humans as well as on the wildlife. Let us see what are those adverse effects. So first we will start with the effect of the light pollution on the humans. Like most other living organisms, humans also have become accustomed to the day-night cycle of the 12 hours day and 12 hours of darkness for generations prior to the invention of the artificial light. And this 24-hour day-night cycle is known as the circadian cycle, and it affects the physiological processes in almost all the organisms. So here we can see that these processes, they include the brainwave patterns, hormone production, cell regulation, and other biological activities. So here in the first diagram, it is related to the diurnal and the circadian production of the hormones. We can see that we are having the production of different hormones at the different time of the circadian cycle. And here we have the adiponectin, insulin, then FSH and LH hormones, growth hormones, melatonin, leptin, thyroid stimulating hormone. So here we have the 12 midnight, 6 a.m., 12 noon, and the 6 p.m. So we can see that we are having the release of hormones at different time in our body. And in the second diagram, here we have the circadian rhythm. So circadian rhythm, it refers to the physical, mental and the behavioral changes that occur in most living organisms over a 24-hour cycle, and it is regulated by the light and darkness of our surrounding. So here we have starting from the 6 a.m., then noon, 6 p.m. and midnight and again 6 a.m. So this is a complete cycle. So we can see here that at 6:45 a.m. we are having the sharpest blood pressure rise. Then we are having here at 7:30 melatonin secretion stops. At 10 a.m. we are having the highest alertness. At 2:30 p.m. we are having the best coordination in our body. At 3:30 p.m. we are having the fastest reaction time. And then 5 p.m. we are having the greatest cardiovascular efficiency and the muscle strength. 6:30 p.m. we are having the highest blood pressure. At 7 p.m., we are having the highest body temperature. At 9 p.m., melatonin secretion starts in our body. At 2 a.m., we are having the deepest sleep. And at 4 a.m., we are having the lowest body temperature. So, this is how the circadian rhythm affects our body. So, we can see here that our body functioning is adapted to the 12 hours day and 12 hours night. But exposure to artificial light at night, it may have the negative effect on our body. So research suggests that artificial light at night and the brighter residential nighttime lighting, it is associated with the reduced sleep times, dissatisfaction with the sleep quality, excessive sleepiness, impaired daytime functioning, and also obesity. And many of these studies have shown that exposure to artificial light at night, it negatively affects the human health, including the increased risk for sleep disorder like the insomnia and delayed sleep phase syndrome, depression, hypertension, attention deficit disorder, obesity, diabetes, and the heart disease. Our biological clock that is associated with the sleep-wake pattern, it is mainly governed by the natural day and night cycle, and it is largely influenced by the photoreceptors in our eye, and these are more sensitive to the blue wavelength of the light. So when we are exposed to artificial light at night, it disturbs that particular day and night cycle. So here we can see that these photoreceptors, they induces the production of the serotonin and melatonin in our body. So when we are awake, we have the production of the serotonin. So this serotonin is a neurotransmitter that sends the signal between the nerve cells, and it regulates many body functions like our mood, bowel movement and sleep. But in night, when we are in sleeping condition and our eyes are not exposed to any light source, in that case we are having the secretion of the melatonin in our body. This melatonin has the antioxidant properties. It induces sleep, boosts the immune system, lowers cholesterol, and helps the functioning of the thyroid, pancreas, ovaries, testes, and the adrenal gland. So we can say that this melatonin is potent antioxidant, anti-carcinogen, and is responsible for regulating the metabolisms and immune responses. But when we are exposed to artificial light at night, it suppresses the melatonin production, which is very essential to keep us healthy. So some of the researchers also show that the exposure to artificial light at night, it is associated with the increased risk of cancer. Apart from its effect on our health, light pollution is also having the concern related to our safety. It is not necessary that bright light source or more light it is always safe, because the glare from these sources, they increase the shadows and they does not let our eye adjust to see what is there. As we can see here, we are not seeing any problem, but when we place hand in front of this light source, we can see a person is standing at the corner of this house. Similarly, this is the before condition, but when we place the hand in front of this artificial light source, we can see a person is standing here. So rather than making us more safe, glare associated with the light sources, they cause the concern of our safety. Now let us see what are the effects of the light pollution on wildlife. The daily cycles of the light and dark on earth, these are essential to the regulation of the life sustaining processes in both plants and animals, including their reproduction, feeding, sleeping and the predator defense. But artificial light at night, they affect their normal foraging, migration, reproduction through a change in behavior, as well as affecting the reproductive hormones, predation and development. Scientists have studied the effect of artificial light at night exposure on at least 160 species at levels from the individual plant and animals all the way up to entire population. And the observed effects have been seen among the birds, fishes, mammals, reptiles, amphibians, insects, and other invertebrates and plants. The status and the impact of light pollution on organisms have been compiled in a report named Artificial Light at Night, State of the Science 2024 by the Dark Sky Organization, and it can be referred from this particular website. The presence of artificial light at night not only disrupts the natural light intensity but also its timing and the color characteristics. It overall increases the total light intensity in comparison to the natural level and also shift the spectrum of the ambient light towards the shorter wavelength, to which many of the nocturnal species are especially sensitive. Biological activities in the plants and animals, they mainly rely on the daily and the seasonal rhythm of exposure to light in the environment. And the poorly timed light exposure interrupts these activities, for example, finding food, the time at which certain animals first emerge from their hiding places, plant and animal reproduction, sequencing of the seasonal events in the plant, animal migration and communication. So all these effects can make it difficult for the organisms to survive and reproduce. And it also influences how the species evolve. Let us see the adverse impact of light pollution on some of these species. So here first we have the sea turtles. So artificial light at night, they affect the nesting behavior of these sea turtles. Many species of sea turtles, they lay their eggs on the beaches, and the females, they return for decades to the same beach to nest where they were born. Light pollution has its negative effect on both female turtles as well as on the hatchlings. Artificial illumination on these beaches at night may inhibit the female nesting behavior, and it induces the disorientation in them, causing them to deviate towards the adjacent roadways, where they face an increased risk of vehicular collision. Here we can see a leatherback turtle nesting in front of a hotel on a beach. So when artificial light at night is not properly managed, it can significantly impact the nesting and hatching of the turtles. Hatchlings of the sea turtles, they have an innate instinct that leads them to the brightest horizon, which is usually over the ocean. But artificial light at night near the source, they cause the hatchlings to become disoriented and they wander the island. And excess lighting from the nearshore buildings or the street, they draw the hatchling towards the land where they may be eaten, run over, or they can get dehydrated. So here we have a hatchling loggerhead sea turtle which turns towards the island following the human-made light instead of the seaward towards the safety. Second impact we can see on the migrating birds. Not all the birds migrate at night. There are some bird species which have adapted themselves to migrate during the day. For example, we have the broad-winged hawk or the American white pelican, which take advantage of the thermals, that is the hot air rising from the earth's surface. Then we have the tree swallows, which are the strong swift flyers, and they have adapted themselves to avoid the predators and capture prey while flying. But the bird species which migrate during the day, they are very less in number, and for most of the bird species, it is best to migrate under the cover of the darkness. Night migrating birds include ducks and the geese, plovers and the sandpipers, and songbirds of all kinds. And these species fly at night to take the advantage of the cooler temperature, calmer skies, and the fewer predators. And these migrating birds, they use the celestial light to go from one place to another. But when we have the artificial light at night, it attracts them, particularly when they are flying at the lower altitude or when it is cloudy condition. So when we are having the artificial light at night, the birds, they become disoriented and may end up circling in the illuminated areas, and as their energy depletes, they risk the exhaustion or even worse. All night migrating birds, they are affected by the light pollution, causing the disorientation in them and also collision with the large buildings with the fatal consequences. You can refer to this particular article about the tragic bird collision, where it has been reported that 1000 birds die crashing into the building, and it is published on September 21, 2024, and it can be referred from this particular website. And it is not only the migration that is affected by the light pollution, but some of the researchers also mentioned that artificial light at night, they impact the birds in other ways too. For example, here we have the several species of the petrel and the other seabirds. They are in serious trouble because of the light pollution, because the artificial light, it attract, disorient, and ultimately kill thousands of newly fledged birds every year. American robins and other songbirds in the areas with the high level of artificial light, they are beginning their morning chorus earlier, often hours before dawn, and thus singing for the longer period. Scissor-tailed flycatcher and other diurnal foragers, they catch the insects at the street light for hours into the night. And some of the species, such as the burrowing owls, they are colonizing the cities to take advantage of increased prey attracted to the light. Next impact which we can see is on the frogs. And many amphibians such as the frogs, they rely on the darkness for their mating call. But if there is light pollution, it reduces the number of call or interfere with the timing, thus lowering their reproductive success. So frogs and the toads, which are the nocturnal breeders, they may fail to attract their mates due to artificial light disrupting their calling behavior. Next impact is on insect. Many of the insects, they are only active at the night. Many insects are drawn to light, but when we have the artificial light at night, it can cause the changes in the insect movement and make the species more vulnerable to predators. If the population of these insects decline, it may negatively impact all the species that rely on these insects for food or for pollination. As these insects are attracted towards the light, It may increase the competition between the predators, affecting the food webs in very unanticipated ways. Most negative effect of the light pollution is on the bioluminescent species, means those species which are capable of producing and emitting their own light. For example, fireflies and the glowworms, because they use their light signals to attract their partners. So when ambient illumination is high, the visibility of these signals is reduced and the communication between individuals and therefore reproduction can be impaired. So here we can see the example of the glowworm with and without artificial light. So in the absence of the light pollution, flashes emitted by a glowworm female, it can attract a male up to 45 meters. But in the presence of the strong illumination, the visibility of this flash is reduced and it compromises the communication and therefore the reproduction. Then we have the another example of Indian carpenter bee, which is the world's only known nocturnal bee species which can fly only under the starlight. And it is found in the Bhimasankar Wildlife Sanctuary in the Maharashtra, which is around 100 kilometers away from the city of Mumbai. The studies and the researchers have shown that the sky glow from the city is so bright in the sanctuary that there is a rising concern about the future of such species, because the light pollution, it can disrupt the bees' natural behavior such as the foraging and the navigation, which is very crucial for their survival and the pollination of the plant. Next is the effect of the light pollution on the plants. In the plant's photoperiod, that is the time of light exposure, it is very important because it determines the biological activities like the pigment formation, leaf shedding, and the onset and the breaking of the bud dormancy in the plants. So if there is presence of artificial light at night, it alters the natural photoperiod and thus disturb the plant's development. Here we have some of the examples for the effect of light pollution on the plant. First example is of cactus species like the Seleniceras grandiflorus, which is also referred as the queen of the night because it blooms only in the dark of the night. And this queen of the night is a rare type of flower that blooms once a year only for the overnight. And these species are pollinated by the nocturnal insect or the small animals, mainly the moths and the bats. So if there is increase in the lighting condition around them, it may prohibit them from ever flowering and thus reproducing. So this is the example how light pollution affects the pollination and thus the flowering. Second is related to the shedding of the leaves. So in the temperate region, as the season change towards winter, shorter days and the cooler temperature, it induces a signal in the trees to stop the photosynthesis and start dropping the leaves to protect themselves from the upcoming winters. And studies have shown that the trees which are living near the street lamps, they had retained some of their leaves longer than the normal, and thus it affects their growth cycle. So here we can see in these two examples that the part which is towards the street lamp, it is having the leaves, while the other part, they had already dropped their leaves. In this video, we have taken some of the selective species to understand the impact of the light pollution on the wildlife, but there are many more species which are affected by the light pollution. It can be referred from the website of the Dark Sky organization, and these are the references from where the content of today's video have been taken. We will meet soon in the next video related to the mitigation technique of the light pollution. Thank you.